one thing that I discovered that I was expecting was that very few people around here know about CLAS standards. They're not laws, and so most businesses have there's no real incentive and there's no real structure in place to encourage the implementation of the CLAS standards. So that was that assumption was confirmed throughout all the interviews and such that I did. But I was intrigued to discuss with the pharmacists in the region in comparison to the conversations that I had with some of the community members from Chesapeake Multicultural Resource Center, because many of the community members were expressing the difficulties of getting access to healthcare as a non-English speaking person in the community, and how many of them don't even have a primary care physician. And so they go to a walk-in clinic or something and they get a prescription and then they go to the pharmacy. The pharmacist is overwhelmed with the burden of not only getting someone their prescription, but telling them what it's for and how to take it and following up on that. So in this community in particular, there's been a significant increase in the Hispanic or Latino population over the last 10 years. I mean, I was looking at census data. It's like 230% from census to census. And that's an enormous increase, but to quote one of the elected officials that I interviewed, it's been somewhat under the radar in that a lot of the people who are in charge of the organizational structures and everything aren't aware of this increase. It's not in part due to the fact that the culture of those who have been moving in here is to lay low and not be noticed due to immigration issues and just the difficulties of being in a country where you don't speak the language. Even if they were proficient in English on a day-to-day basis, it's a totally different story when you're talking about speaking English about healthcare. For example, in English, if you translate an English document discussing diabetes into Spanish, most translation software will leave the word diabetes in the document because diabetes doesn't have a direct Spanish translation. So when you're talking about diabetes in Spanish, it's a term for sugar in the blood. But because many places people don't have professional translation services, it just gets left as diabetes. And so you're saying diabetes to someone who doesn't have any basis of understanding for that. Each interview that I conducted, the head pharmacist indicated that they had experienced instances where cultural and linguistic barriers to their communication had affected the ability that they had to deliver a prescription to a patient. The approach that the CLAS standard takes is very top-down, so throughout the entire organization, infusing its policies, practices from the mission statement to the people hired for the board of directors to the everyday employees, making them represent the community's diversity, ensuring that there are systems in place to facilitate communication, also feedback, like encouraging feedback from what works and what doesn't, and ensuring that there's grievance counseling available if somebody has felt wronged or slighted. It's a very comprehensive way of ensuring all members of a population have access to healthcare. And when you talk about stuff like this, it gets a very sort of generalized feeling to it. But when you're actually sitting down and interviewing a pharmacist from Walmart and talking to her about her background, why she works in the pharmacy, what she does, what she sees every day, people really care. Even if they're not aware of CLAS, when specifically in relation to my project, everyone I talk to is aware that, yes, this is an issue, communication is an issue, something should be done about it, we need to address this and work to help better the community in general. So, and that can be difficult, especially given organizations like Walmart, which have such a huge corporate structure that changes in one small store on the eastern shore of Maryland have to come from so far away that it's almost, it's just baffling to think of how to achieve that. But then when you look at the people who actually work there and who are here day to day, it's a little more hopeful.